it's just scary. It's scary as fuck, but I'm taking small steps. So I'll tell you on one of them. So this is one of the strategies I've been able to pick out the past couple of years. When you are about to make a big decision, listen to me here. I want to take small steps, small incremental steps that lead me to making a big decision that is going to be ultimately easier. After all those small choices, it'll be a lot easier for me to just say, oh yeah, let's go. Welcome back to the Joyage. I'm Cade, your guide. I'll be replacing the little voice inside your head for now, giving you a break from the constant internal monologue that is the human mind. Thanks again for listening or viewing whichever platform you're on. If you're coming from Clubhouse, if you're listening right now, I'm live. If you're watching this from Spotify or YouTube, obviously it's not live, but if you want to watch my podcast live, the one you listen to right now, go into Clubhouse. If you don't have an invite, get an invite. And yeah, listen to me do this whole thing live. I have no listeners right now, but maybe that'll change. And if they do, and you want to raise a hand while I'm in the middle of a podcast, please do. I'd love to have, some audience interaction. I think it'd be cool. So yeah, man, if you're not listening to this live, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already and drop a like so other people can join the voyage. Okay. Wow, that was a little nerve-wracking because I'm in the middle of a live this is live right now on Clubhouse. My phone is right here. And I'm going fully live. This is super nerve-wracking. So if I say the wrong thing, then I don't know what happens. And since no one's listening, it's a little bit less scary for me. But regardless, it's super nerve-wracking. I'm a little in over my head. I sat in the bathroom for 20 minutes just now trying to work up the courage. But it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to be tripping all over the place with my words, but it's not so bad. But yeah, this actually lends itself very, very nicely into the core of this podcast I wanted to talk about. The reason I wanted to record tonight instead of tomorrow because it's fresh. It's something I'm passionate about right now in the heat of the moment kind of thing. And that is the trip I went on this past weekend. If you watch my vlog channel, Cade Bergman, you will know I posted a cabin/snowboarding party montage, snowboarding montage, and it was epic. It was so epic. If you haven't seen it, I'll link it below. And the gist was basically we went snowboarding, and I have never been snowboarding in my life. I mean, I went when I was 6, but that does not count. So basically the first time ever going snowboarding. And within 1 hour, I was hurtling down the mountain at 100 to 200 miles per hour. I swear to God. And it was nuts. It was actually insane. I've never felt more alive in my life. I was literally hurtling down the mountain and going so fast and low key, super out of my element and my comfort zone. Cause if you've ever snowboarded, if you're going straight down and you're not going side to side, you're going very, very fast and you're accelerating at an even faster rate. And it is scary if you get to a top speed and you don't know how to slow down. But what I did was, and what I want to talk about today, is throwing yourself in the fire early, right? So one example is when I started surfing. My very first day, I had not trained literally at all. And my boss comes up and says, hey man, you have a 5-table section, and it was Friday night. I think it was, no, not Friday night. It was Memorial Day. It was a holiday. So we were slam-packed, 3-hour wait all night, all day. And I went in there, died basically. It was the worst day of my life. I can't even tell you how many times I almost broke down and just I was so in over my head, it wasn't even funny. It was so bad. I messed up all my orders. No one got their drinks. It was a disaster. But what I want to get at is that one day, that first week for me, where I was just thrown into the fire, I learned so much. And that was the most stable, core, strong foundation I could have built for myself as a server. And I'm now one of the best servers at the restaurant, very confident in my skills, have no trouble really with anything anymore. And with the snowboarding, the same thing. I basically said, look, there's only so much I can do going down this tiny little, almost flat mountain, right? The one where you're supposed to train on with baby wheels kind of thing. And you essentially can't do anything because you're not replicating what real life snowboarding is like. And what happens when you put yourself in a situation where you are, in fact, snowboarding, that is suddenly a totally different ballgame. You're forced to pull answers out of your head that you didn't know you had. And in the same way that when you're taking a test or you're studying for a test and people say do a practice test and like actually make yourself go through what you would have to go through if you were actually taking the final exam, and that forces your brain to think in a different way than if you were using flashcards or Quizlet. And it's a different type of studying that lends itself very, very nicely to efficiency, to basically streamlining your way to success in whatever that is for you. And for me, that snowboarding thing, I basically went down the mountain at the moderate intensity. So it wasn't straight down, but it was steep. It was way steeper than I thought I was going to be doing 1 hour after I got in the slopes. And yeah, long story short, I got really good really quick because I just kept putting myself. I went down, immediately went back up, went down, back up, and I just did it for like 5 hours straight. We did it, and the learning curve, I mean, it was ridiculous. The turnover rate from like nothing, amateur, beginner to pretty solid snowboarder, it was quick, way quicker than I thought it should have been. And the reason I wanted to bring that up just now at the beginning of the podcast is because I'm on Clubhouse doing this live podcast, as I've mentioned like 5 times already, because I'm excited. I don't know anything about Clubhouse. I literally do not know anything about Clubhouse. All I know is it's apparently some type of live presentation. So I said, that's perfect for me. I'll just do my podcast live. And I sat and just had the Clubhouse app on my phone for a while. My friend Casey invited me. Shout out, Casey. We will do a collab soon. And yeah, I'm super excited. I don't know anything about it, so I'm just going to start. I'm going to record my first one. I don't know if I can save these. I don't know how any of it works. I thought you could title it. I thought you could do hashtags. You can't do any of this such. Maybe you can. I just don't know how to work it. But yeah, so, that's how I'm going to learn Clubhouse. I'm just going to do one every podcast, and then every time I do it, try and pick something up, like look at some of the options. Hopefully, if people are interacting, I'll kind of learn on the go, and I feel like that's the only way I can learn. I mean, at some point, you do need to learn some like basic fundamentals, and I kind of know some stuff about Clubhouse, but not really. But same with snowboarding. I kind of knew the basics. You lean back to turn left, and you lean forward to turn right, and slow down as well. And I said, okay, let me just practice that on the slope. And I talked about it a little bit on my montage vlog video too, toward the end. And yeah, I thought that was super interesting. I thought it was super helpful for anyone who wants to pick up a skill and quickly go from level 1 to level 5 instead of like taking a long time to get to level 3. Go from like bounce to level 5. You can almost anything. You can bounce from level 1 to 5 very, very quickly if you throw yourself in the fire. And I learned that with serving. I learned that with Clubhouse right now. I learned that with snowboarding. And it's so important, I feel like. And I feel like it's so overlooked because everyone is trying to pick up skills nowadays. You're trying to learn something. We're in this like go, 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 go society where it's not okay not to be go, 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 and we all feel like we're rushed in a sense. And I watched a YouTube video where one of my favorite YouTubers, Will, he was talking about how he just like rushes to eat because he feels like he's just always needing to be in a rush and finish what he's doing, go on to the next, on to the next. And if you can't beat that, you kind of got to play the game a little bit. You might as well kind of join and figure out what you can do as long as you've become aware of the fact that, you're rushing through things and maybe you don't really want to take the time to become a good editor, but you want to start a YouTube or a podcast or whatever it is that requires editing. So you need to go and film it and actively go edit that first one. Edit it and edit it again in a different way. And then do it again in a different way. And then film again, edit another type of video. When I was first learning Final Cut Pro, which is a professional editing software, I remember when I bought it, I actually bought the demo version for 4 months because I wanted to teach myself and to make sure I wanted that exact, editing platform, because there was Adobe Premiere, there was a couple other ones I forget, but ultimately I stuck with Final Cut because it was a one-time pay, and it was similar, very slightly similar to like Windows Movie Maker and iMovie, but like way glorified. And so if you look back on my first 40 videos on YouTube after the soccer videos, you'll see that they were all over the place. I have short films, I have an animated film, I have vlogs, I have Amazon reviews, I have like cinematic sketches, I have comedy, I have intense, I have all the different types of videos, and I've edited all the different kinds. And that has lent itself very nicely to now I can create a video where there's a 3-minute portion where it's in like my snowboarding vlog, super intense party montage vlog, like hype, and then like just like that, go into snowboarding. And then immediately after, into like a motivational speech about learning stuff and getting good at stuff quick. And it was just so weird. And I was able to edit it and create a story, stitch a story together that made sense and left the viewer feeling satisfied, I think, at the end of the video. And for that reason, my viewer retention rate is going up. And my everything on YouTube is going up, very small increments, but very, very real progress. And it took me a year to get here. And some things like editing and YouTube, that takes a little bit longer, but there are definitely some skills and different things you can pick up that will not take a year. But if it's something you love doing, like I loved editing. I've always loved editing. I remember from when I was like in middle school, the reason I loved editing is because I could go and do the thing. For me, was just kicking soccer balls. I was making the free kick videos. I was big. I was really big when I was in middle and high school. And that's what I was into. So I would just go film every single soccer session, whether it's games, practice, drills, free kicks, mainly free kicks for me. But I would go and I would edit all of them. And I love the fact that I could do it all by myself. I didn't have to rely on anybody. I didn't need a goalie. I didn't need a filmer. I didn't need anybody but myself, a soccer ball, and my camera. And I love that. I love the sense of independence you get from that. And now that I've been able to pinpoint that and know that that is something very important to me, the reason I don't want to have guests on every week is because this podcast is for me. I want to be able to, pick up and move to Puerto Rico and be able to take this podcast with me. I don't want to have to rely on other people on my podcast, or if I have like co-hosts or something like that. That sucks. When other people get brought into it, it gets more complicated and it starts to get a little bit away from, for me at least, what I wanted to start it for. And for that, for me, is purging my inner thoughts that are always in, my need to kind of like be at service to other people and help people and kind of get my message out of my head, because it's always floating around my head. And I was able to do that through soccer by myself, and that's why I loved editing. I could do everything by myself. Casey Neistat said it, everything is in the edit, is all the edit. So for me, I knew I loved it, and I knew Final Cut Pro was a professional editing software that's going to take a while to learn. But I loved it. I loved making the videos. I loved editing the video. It was frustrating a little bit because I couldn't do all the things I wanted, but I could do what was in my realm, which was at that point beginner filmmaker. So I was a beginner filmmaker, beginner producer, beginner scriptwriter, beginner editor. And that was cool because I did all of it at the same time. And now I'm kind of progressing at all a little bit faster, and I'm becoming like good, like pretty solid, And I remember a few months ago, I had edited a video, and I remember rewatching it and saying, holy shit, this is like professional quality. This is a really solid video. It was a promo I did, and damn, I'm good. I finally am good at this. And now I'm at a point where I'll make a YouTube video or podcast, or like in this last weekend, I made the snowboarding montage, and I had people reaching out. I mean, not like a ton of people, but like a good bit of people saying, hey man, like it's a sick video, or like I really loved your message. And what I wanted to say was, or what I was saying to myself was like, I know, I did it. It was all me. It's my vision. It was my producing, my everything. And I know it's good, but obviously I was like, thank you, like I appreciate it kind of thing. And I do appreciate it, but I also know, like, I know everything that gets put into this. And at a certain point, if you grow, and I know a lot of people who do this kind of stuff, at some point hire an editor, hire a producer, hire a manager. I don't think that's the route I'm going to go. Even if I were to just, randomly blow up and become like Logan Paul, I don't know if I could handle letting other people take the helm. Like the only thing I could think of would be to outsource like some of the distribution, like clipping the highlights and distributing them on all platforms. That literally takes an entire day. Like it takes so long. I need to figure out a better way to do it. So if you know a better way to do it, please let me know, because I can't afford to outsource right now. But yeah, I've always liked being able to do everything on my own. It's something I've always just loved the idea of, because I have trouble kind of, I guess, creating super deep relationships and friendships and people I can count on. And that leaves me being kind of like left in the dust a lot. And that's probably why I don't create those. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I just kind of don't see the point because I'm like, look, I'm going to get let down anyway. And that's kind of a good and bad thing, I guess. I don't know if it's like bad, but because it kind of led me to do everything on my own, which I'm really happy for. All the things I've built, obviously with the help of other people, but my vision, my work ethic is the main thing pushing that forward. Obviously I have like my privilege and I have, parents like helping me pay for rent and all that stuff. But, so I do appreciate all those things, but I love the fact that I put in this work to start this YouTube channel. I spent my own money to finance all the things that go into making this show, the cameras, the lighting, the mic and the audio and everything. And so that's my favorite part about pretty much the whole thing. I really don't know where, I don't know if that was supposed to go anywhere. Who knows? I kind of, I've been looking at Clubhouse this whole time because my name keeps like glitching. I don't know if you can see that. My name keeps like, oh, it stopped. Oh, no, it's back again. Oh, it's bothering me a little bit. Oh, okay. So we were talking about learning new things, trying different things and kind of pushing yourself to the limit a little bit. And this question popped up because this question happens all the time. And I hate this question because I'll ask it, not thinking anything of it, and then I'll remember because they'll ask me back and I'll be like, ah. And it is the question of, what did you do this weekend? What did you do last week? Yo, how have you been? Oh, God, I hate that question. I don't know. I never know how to answer that question. I'm like, do you really want to know? Like, I mean, it's not that, like, it was all in my head. A lot of it was in my head. I did my podcast. Maybe I filmed a YouTube video. Maybe I just hung out and like, I don't know. I didn't do anything really. And every now and then I'll have a conversation with someone and we'll like laugh about the fact that we both asked each other a question and neither of us had a real answer. But God, I hate that question, especially if it's someone you don't really know and you really have to come up with a new answer and you're like, oh God, I ate food, I watched a movie, I guess, it's just like, what do you want to know, And God, what a shit question. I always ask that question, I don't care about the answer really, just making light conversation, but I always overthink that question. I don't know if anyone else has ever thought that question, but it's like a super quick scenario that plays in my head. I'm like, okay, what should I really say? Like, what are they gonna like judge me for not having done enough this weekend? And like, of course not. Of course they're not judging me. Like that, the idea doesn't even come up in their head to judge me. It's not like a thing. In the same way that if someone told me, yo, I just hung out, I would be like, oh, cool, nice. That must have been cool. I don't have anything to say really other than just like dope. Like unless something crazy happened, like, oh yeah, I moved out of the country, that would be something I should probably like delve deeper into. But if it's not that, if it's not something crazy monumental, then most of the time it's just nothing. And like, do you feel like that's like do you have a better answer? I don't have a better answer. Just like, I don't know. But shoot, I just figured someone asked me that question earlier and I wrote it down on my phone. Like sometimes that'll happen. Like someone will ask me a question or I'll be walking and like a random situation or a thought will pop up in my head. And I'm just like, yeah, let me write that down. And I'll like talk about it on my podcast or something. But, yeah. So I was just thinking about that question and, sometimes it's cool to just exist. You don't always got to be pushing, grinding, growing. I think you should, and it should be like the main trajectory should be positive and growth and that type of thing. But there's nothing wrong with, every now and then just sleeping until 1. I did it yesterday, and part of me was beating myself up for it, and part of me was like, who gives a shit? It's like 1 day out of 1 year, out of 100 years you have in your life, And that got me thinking like, oh, we have a very, very, very long life. If you really think about it, think about, I read somewhere, I think it was 11,000 thoughts we have a day. 11,000. And one time I was before I got to work, and I don't know if I was high or sober, but I had a conversation with my boss, and like 6 or 7 hours later, I was leaving to go home, and I passed my boss, and I randomly got a blip of the conversation I had 7 hours before, and my head went for like a whirlwind. It was like, holy shit, That was today. That was 7 hours ago. The amount of stuff, the amount of thoughts, the amount of conversations, like things that happen in between then and now, it's absurd. Especially in like a work environment where it's like go, 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 go. A lot of stuff happens in 7 hours. A lot of stuff happens, and it's funny when I think about it because like I'll be like, man, what seemed like a big deal or like a serious conversation 7 hours ago, I don't even remember, care, nor does it matter in any capacity anymore. And I'm like, oh my God, how much of our life and daily and situations that happen as they come just are not a big deal at all, even remotely close to a big deal. It's most. Most conversations aren't deep. Most interactions aren't deep or meaningful. And I'm like, wow, sometimes I overthink certain situations or conversations. And then sometimes I'm really good about being like, this is one of those conversations that does not matter. I don't care what happens here. I'll just kind of sort of listen, not really give much, meaningful or impactful information to the conversation. I'm just like, yeah, it's like, it's probably when I'm high. If I had to guess, it's probably because I'm high during those times, but who knows, because sometimes I'll be in a conversation, I'll be into it. And then like, you'll be high and you'll be like looking at other people having conversation, doing normal stuff. And you're just like, what are you doing? Like I don't know how to put it into words, but when I get high, sometimes I'll look at people doing normal stuff and I'll just be like, what are you doing? And there's not anything of it. They're just like walking their dog or reading a book. And I'm just like, are they like thinking about what they're doing, like aware of what they're doing? Or are they just doing? And I don't know why I'm asking myself these questions because it really doesn't matter or lead anywhere productive. I don't know why I have these random thoughts, but I always do that when I people watch. If I'm high, I'm just like in such wonder at like how people choose to spend their time. And that is such a high thought to have, but I have that when I'm sober sometimes. Like sometimes I swear, dude, I be tweaking when I'm sober. I'll be full on completely sober. Nothing in my system but water. And I'll do something just stupid. Like something really dumb. I'll leave something somewhere or I'll make a mistake, a weird mistake. And then later on in the day, I'll be like, God, what was I thinking? I must have been like, oh, I was sober. And it's like every time I'm starting to find that I mess something up or I leave something somewhere or I lose something. I'm like, dude, why was I sober when I messed that up? Like, how is that possible? Why is it when I'm high, I never screw up anything? Everything works, And sometimes I'm like, man, how much am I on autopilot every day? Sober autopilot, where you're just like going through and making things happen and you're not really sure, you're not really like paying that much attention. You're sort of paying attention, but you're halfway here, halfway in your head. At least for me, I'm 2/3 of my head. And it's just weird, because I'm like, is that the opposite? I mean, it is the opposite of being mindful and being aware. And I try my best to practice mindfulness, but sometimes, man, a whole day will pass and you won't even know what happened. And then like at night, you'll be like sitting in your bed, just like, whoa, like what did I do today? Like what just happened? When you're just sitting there tired and you're like laying in bed staring at the ceiling, you're just like, okay. I don't know if anyone else gets that, but shoot, it's cool though, because when that happens at night, there's a couple of videos that I love to watch. One of them is by Neil deGrasse Tyson. He talks about kind of like our connectedness to the universe, and one of the videos is like some type of sort of motivational, but sort of just like more bring your awareness back to like being present. And those videos bring so much, like they bring so much awareness and so much presence, which is the goal of them. And for me, it breeds gratefulness. And I like to listen to those videos randomly through the day. Sometimes it'll be at night, sometimes in the middle of the day, sometimes in the morning. And just to click myself on again, be like, yo, you got a lot of good stuff happening. And Gary Vee is another person I love. When he comes on my For You page for TikTok, I'm just like, yes. And today, I think it was today, a video popped up and he was like, if there was a chart of everyone from like bottom poverty, living in like scraps in the mountains of some place in like Southeast Asia, and like you to like Bill Gates, if there was a list of like and they weighed out everything, happiness, money, like all the things, you would rank so much higher than you think. Like, you would be so high in the list, it wouldn't even be feasible. Like, you wouldn't be able to understand it. You'd be like, what do you mean I'm in the top 2%, right? And if you're like living in America and you have, not divorced parents and you're not $100,000 in debt, you're pretty much in that 2% of like highest, happy, got everything going for them, because there's a lot of people who are working for $2 a day. There's a lot of people who are literally carrying water to their village because they don't have water. There's people who got assaulted when they were 5 years old and they're battling demons every day and they can't even go to work without having panic attacks. Like, there are some messed up shit happening in this world, and remind yourself that even when life is literally at its worst and it is just sucking, is always worse for someone else. There's always someone suffering more, and maybe relatively they're struggling worse. Maybe for them, if it was happening to you, it wouldn't be a big deal, but for them, since they had a certain past or a certain situation happen, it's worse for them. And in my last podcast with David, he talked about this a little bit with depression, because I brought up something about the old pre-social media depression versus now, where it seems everyone's getting depression, everyone's getting anxiety. I'm like, is this real depression? Or is this one step from I'm being judged on social media, so now I'm depressed? Like, is there a spectrum for this? And he said something super interesting, and I kind of felt like an asshole when he said it, because I was like, you're right. And he said, well, I wouldn't compare people's depressions, because what is sad for me might not be sad for you. So the same event might happen right in front of both of us, and one may be miles more affected than the other one because of whatever may have happened. And he brought up the situation with like dogs or animals. He was like, look, if it's not my dog and they die, whatever, but my ex-girlfriend, if it was a squirrel, she's crying for the rest of the day. And that was so eye-opening for me, because everyone's going through their own journey, doing their own stuff, and being affected by different things. Something might happen on the side of the street that you just walk right past, you don't even notice. And maybe someone else doesn't walk by, or no, someone else walks past it, but 100% notices and even goes to like help the situation. Maybe it was a guy who got, I don't know, like his bike hit a crack and he's on the ground like with a broken arm or something. Most people drive right past and say, oh, that sucks. But maybe a dude who had that happen a month ago, he noticed that because he got hit by a car on his bike a month ago. And for him, of course he stopped. Of course he noticed, because it was on his mind. It was something that happened to him. And for everyone else, they didn't notice. And the fact that happens every single day, random interactions, you never know when something you say can affect someone so greatly or so not greatly. But you may be saying something that you think is just hitting them to their core. You're doing some good, and then, they didn't even listen. Or there might be something you say on a whim that you don't even remember saying that changed their whole life. And there was a post on Facebook that came up in my memories yesterday, I think. And what was it? It was basically something like the guy came in late, and his boss basically roasted him in front of the whole staff and was like, I can't believe you're late. Like, you do this again, you're fired, blah, blah. Like, you're so angry. Like, it was awful. And the guy didn't even say anything because he needed the job, right? And from that day on, that employee never lifted an extra finger to help. Never, ever put an ounce of extra effort. Never took work home. Because of that one interaction that guy had, from being insensitive, from not taking a second to assess the situation a little bit, maybe ask why he was late. Maybe it was something out of his hands. Maybe it was something catastrophic. You don't know. So when you go and make something, like, that was an extreme version. And most situations aren't like that. But if you're going to explode on someone, like, make sure you got all the stuff, all the details set up, and everything's good before you roast someone like that, or do something that just embarrasses somebody or puts someone else at risk of being sad or upset. Just take an extra second and be like, do I have all the details? Am I right? And even if I'm right, is there a reason to do this? There might be. If roasting him is going to humble him, maybe there is a reason. But some people don't learn like that. Some people just clam up if they get roasted. And you have to know these things, and you have to know like how to interact with people. But yeah, with that whole spiel I talked about, with knowing that your story and your situation, everything that you have in your life is totally different from the next person's. And even if it's someone you grew up with, I mean, me and my sister are close. She's 18, I'm 22. Grew up with a lot of the same shit, and while in many ways we're very similar, we also are very opposite in just viewpoints and opinions and stances on stuff. Like, sometimes we just don't agree whatsoever. Like, I'm like, I kind of see your point, but I don't even sort of agree with you at all. Like, and she's the same way. And that's weird to me, because I'm like, dude, we have the same parents, same house, same school, same everything pretty much. But you struggle with things I never would have thought that I would have had to struggle with. And there are things I dealt with that you never would have to. And for those reasons, you think differently about a certain topic, and I think differently, and that's okay. And an idea I wanted to just plant in your subconscious a little bit was that everybody envies someone. Everyone has someone they envy, Even Bill Gates, even Warren Buffett, there are people that they look up to that maybe they have this one thing that they don't have. Maybe they have a wife that goes hiking with them, and that's the one thing they're missing from their relationship. But they have billions of dollars, Or you have use me for example, a Toyota Prius, but your best friend has a Jeep Wrangler that is like incredible in every way, and you're like, I wish, But there's someone who probably I drove past today that was like, damn, I wish I had a car. All I have is a bike. And to that person, someone could be like, dude, I wish I had a fucking bike or a scooter or anything. And then to that person, they go, man, I wish I had a fucking dad. Like, everyone envies someone for different reasons. And when you find yourself unsatisfied with what you have, you're like, man, I don't have this. I don't have that. I don't have a camera. I don't have a new soccer ball. I don't have like better parents. Like, dude, some people don't have parents. Some people don't have the luxury of playing sports. Check yourself. When you start to do spoiled brat-esque things or ways of thinking where you start to be like annoyed at everything, like maybe your mom is just pissing you off one day and you're like, man, everything you fucking say just pisses me off today. Like, dude, that's fine. Like, we will have those days. But just remember, in the back of your mind, some people would love to have a parent to be mad at. They don't even have a mom in the picture. They would pick that over anything, and to have that a baseline awareness, just to have it. You don't have to act on it every time, but just to remember, hopefully during the interaction that, look, I'm having a bad day, but at least underlying, I love you, as a base foundation. Like, look, you're pissing me off today, but I love you. And some people don't take the time to self-reflect and to check themselves, and they'll fall into the rat race of life, which is just robot, or you just react to things all day long. You just react. And today I went to the dentist, and I had this lady, her name is Amanda. I hope she doesn't get mad for me for talking about it. I told her about my podcast. We had a great, amazing conversation. She was a wonderful lady, and she's a dentist, and her husband works all day, and when he gets off, he streams on Twitch, and he's like 50s, I think, 40s or 50s. And I was like, that's so cool that he has his own thing that he does. She was like, yeah, like, he works 12 hours and comes home, and I'm like, yeah, if you want to play video games for a couple hours, like, go fuck ahead. And then if you're playing video games, you may as well stream and try to make some money. Like, dope. Go for it. And I'm like, wow, that's so cool that she even thought to have that idea of like, yeah, of course I would let my husband have a couple hours to himself. He just worked 12 hours, like. And so I know some wives would be like, what do you mean you're going to go play video games? Like, you should be spending time with me, or you should be helping out with this. Like, dude, we all need our own time to do whatever it is. And people are starting to become aware that your time is your time. And the only person that's even going to understand that is you. So for him, he's like, dude, I just want to play video games because, I don't know, like maybe my friends don't live near me, and this is the only way I can talk to them, or maybe I'm just not good at anything. Maybe I broke my leg. I just play video games because it's an escape, or whatever the reason. Like, let people do their thing for them. It gives them peace. And look, if they didn't have it, they would probably be a much angrier person without it. I find a lot more fulfillment when I do these podcasts, because as the podcasts have grown, I've only done 5, but like, as I do them more often, and as I start to revolutionize myself as I go and try and evolve and get better and learn new things, like, I'm having new ideas every day and new realizations every day. And it keeps me on my toes. And it's interesting because I'm like, this podcast is something I do as like my hobby, but it, thank God, like eventually could yield some real results and maybe a career of some kind, or maybe a connection or a relationship with someone or whatever it is. But this is like my thing. Like I do editing and I do creation of whatever it is. And the YouTube thing is fun. I think I have a knack for it. I think I feel something here with the podcast. I definitely feel something. I feel the momentum. And even without the momentum, man, I feel something in this podcast. I don't know what it is. And I don't know if it's a sign or whatever that like Clubhouse popped up and I kept it on my phone for a couple of days, like praying, just like manifesting that someone lets me in. And then like randomly, my friend Casey from Hawaii lets me in. And I was like, dude, this is it. Maybe this is it. Maybe my podcast leads to me doing a live podcast and then, Elon Musk walks in my room or something, like, whatever it is. But these things are like popping in my head, and it's just cool because they come and go, just like random blips in my day, and random things happen, and I try different things, and I get excited to talk about it. Like, it's my favorite thing. I just get to share it because I know the power of spread of knowledge and spread of word. That's why I love TikTok, because it's a bunch of just repurposed content, and people are taking other people's content, flipping it a little bit, like putting an animation over it, and that's dope because, look, ultimately, the more that it gets out, the more people it reaches is all that really matters. Someone might get mad because you're like, hey, you stole that video from whatever, but it's like, dude, I maybe never would have seen it if this guy hadn't posted it. So yes, it sucks that you didn't give them credit, and you should have, because that would have made everything perfect, but it's dope that I can just share my word. And what I'm saying isn't like revolutionary or the first time anyone's thought of it. Like, these are ideas that have already been said in different ways, but not for me. And maybe I say in a way, in a perfect way that you wouldn't have understood and you wouldn't have like vibed with or something. Maybe there's a certain story that I talked about, and the way I said it was super like relatable to you, or whatever the reason, that you connected with this story. Or maybe Gary Vee said it in a way that I didn't really get, but then some other dude reacted to the Gary Vee video and said, this is dope, and here's what I think about it, and I resonate with his video. Sorry, I freaked out for a second because someone like entered the chat, or entered the Clubhouse room, and then left like immediately because I paused because I didn't know what to do. I like forgot what I was saying. Oh, Jesus. Well, thanks, Cameron, for stopping by for 5 seconds. You're my first viewer ever. That may have been Cameron Vayman. I'm not sure if that was him or not, or if it was just a random Cameron. But okay, so this is something I forgot to do in the last couple podcasts. I know I said it on my first podcast, maybe my second one too, that I wanted to do this every podcast, and I'm coming back to it. It is quote of the day, and it's weird random fact of the day. So first, I want to do it the quote of the day. This I saw today, but I've heard this many times, and it is that people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, and they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. Thank you, Bill Gates. Typically, I don't love quotes from people that are like astronomically famous, people that just don't understand. I mean, I saw a video, I think it was the Ellen Show, where he was like trying to guess prices of like grocery store items that like everybody should know, like how much the box of cereal, and he was like $10. That kind of thing, where you're just like, you're out of the zone, you're out of like the normal person realm, and you can't even fake it. So typically, I wouldn't have picked something like this from someone so famous, but he's a very humble guy. He's like out there doing service. I was like, well, whatever. Especially because this message is so important, and it's that you forget how long 1 year is in a couple different ways. You forget that 1 year is a very long time, but over the course of 100 years, 1 year is not long. So when you think of it in like terms of like relativity, when he says people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, it's like, yes, 1 year is a very long time, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a very short amount of time, and you shouldn't be judging yourself and setting such high expectations for 1 year, because if it's over the long period, 1 year isn't a long time in that. So if you're trying to build a brand, you don't want to build a brand for a couple years and then die out. You want to build a brand that lasts forever, maybe even past your time of death. And I would love that I don't know. I don't really care if it goes past it'd be dope if like someone took it over, maybe that I really liked. But if I had started this Joyage podcast and was setting like a 1 month thing, I'd be upset. I'd be like, dude, how do I have 9 followers? Like, obviously this is not going to work. No one's listening. No one cares. I'm done. And when he says people overestimate what they can do in a year, I think he's talking about like the main people who they say they're going in for a year, but they're really only putting in like 2 to 3 months of work, and they're kind of just going through the motions. And those are the people that judge themselves over 1 year, and those are the people that overestimate for 1 year and they give up. They try something else because they're like, oh, it's not worth it. It's not working out. And if you play the long game, this is stocks, this is brands, this is careers, this is skills, art, whatever it is. You play the long game, you're gonna win. You have to. There's no way. Like humans, everything we do, like over time, pretty much, like stocks, like our lifespan, everything's going on a barely positive trajectory, but it is positive. Like we get smarter, we get better over time. And if I've been playing baseball for 40 years, even if I like suck, I'm still gonna be better than most people because I've been playing for 40 years, kind of thing. And in the same way that if I edited 3 videos a week, every week for the rest of my life, you can bet your ass I'm gonna be a damn good editor, right? And that's something you can't take away from like the elders. That's why they talk about it in like all those cartoon movies and Disney movies growing up. Like the people that people went to for advice and wisdom, those were the elders. They were depicted as the elders, and the reason for that is because they've been doing it the longest. In like magic shows, like whoever's the oldest guy, he's typically the best because he's been doing it the longest. He's seen the most action. He's seen the most. He's done the most. He's been in the most situations that could have gone wrong. So he has that life experience that, as I've said before, is all important pretty much. Like nothing really can beat it. And if you've been doing the game for a couple years and you think you're the best, I promise you you're not. Because if you are the best, imagine what you're in 40 years. You have to be on another level, right? And I don't know. That was a cool quote. I hope people can really listen to that quote because that's something that I try every day to resonate in myself and remember to play the long game and to not judge. Sort of judge, but more like in a sense of look how far I've come. And if I even look back 7 months of video making, it's night and day, my filmmaking, the way and the speed at which I can get videos out is much faster. Obviously I'm, a long time away from where I'd like to be, but I'm doing well. I'm doing very well. And I'm very interested to see in another year, 5 years, how good I am, what different ideas I've started, what different life choices I've made. One big life choice that just came up actually was that I was supposed to be going to Japan, and that's why I'm still here, because I've been kind of waiting on seeing what the Japan situation would be. I was supposed to be going over to teach English, and I was supposed to leave like a year ago, and they've basically been saying like, wait, Japan's almost open, just wait a little longer. And yesterday I got an email saying, hey, we're officially closing down. Like, nah, we can't take anyone new for like we don't know, but we're pretty much canceling your group, sorry. Good luck. That's what I got basically. And I kind of accepted that. I knew that was probably going to happen, but now that that door is officially closed, I have a question to ask myself, and that is like, what the hell am I going to do? I always had that little bit of a comfort blanket saying, okay, look, Japan will happen at some point, or at least I can pretend like it'll happen at some point. Now I can't. Now I can't hide behind the Japan idea. Japan's not happening. It's not. And I kind of knew that was happening for a while, but it's not happening. I'm not going to Japan. Maybe later, but not right now. And part of me is excited because low-key I've been wanting to move to the Northwest, and I was kind of thinking if I went to Japan that would ruin that, and I would also not be able to make as much money and save as much money and invest and do all the things I wanted to do. I was worried that if I was teaching English in another country, I wouldn't be able to prioritize YouTube and podcasting, which is what I want to do. And maybe this is like the universe pushing me in that direction. It was like, look, that was what you're supposed to do, so we're just going to cancel your Japan path. Like, sorry, it's not going to happen. Not even an option anymore. Go and do the thing. And I'm starting to think, man, like, I really fuck with the van life idea. It's cheap. This could maybe work. I could do my podcast in the van, My YouTube video would be van life plus whatever else I'm doing. Like, that's entertaining itself, you know? I want to move to the Northwest, which just has beautiful mountains, beautiful scenery. That's where I've been wanting to go for a long time. Like, dude, if I moved out there and lived in a van, what a different life. Like, what am I doing? You know, that becomes the next question. What do I do to finance that? How do I pay for that? And the idea was, for the last 6 months, I was kind of like, look, I'm just going to take this summer and just rack up like $20K and just kind of launchpad myself into the Northwest and see what happens. You know, I'll get a job, whatever job. And I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. It's really risky, like the whole idea of it. But at some point, my life has to start. Yeah, in a sense, like at some point, I have to go, right? Like go away from the shadow of the parents' household and start something on your own. Because everything I did was like in my own state. You know, I went to a college a couple hours away, came back to like my hometown college, and now I live back home with my parents. So I know there's a certain thing that's going to happen once I leave and I branch out and I'm really away. And it's one of those things that, like, once I move to the Northwest, that's pretty much it. That is the end. That is the closed chapter of that sector of my life. The growing phase, level 1. Once I move, that's it. There's no more college Cade. Like, there's no more, part-time jobs. Like, once I move, that's it. It's the next chapter. And that's dope. I'm excited. I just wish I had a more, like, ground answer on how I'm going to do that, because in this world, this capitalistic world, if you don't have money, you're screwed. But then I'm like, dude, I can make it happen. People do it all the time. It's just scary. It's scary as fuck, but I'm taking small steps. So I'll tell you on one of them. So this is one of the strategies I've been able to pick out the past couple of years. When you are about to make a big decision, listen to me here. Make small decisions that lead to that big one, right? So I want to move to a van life, potentially into the Northwest. My first step, got a Planet Fitness membership. Well, I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm about to. I just canceled my normal gym membership, getting a Planet Fitness one because I can shower there 24 hours and they're all over the country. So that's my first step. My second step is probably going to be, let's find some type of means of finance in there and start, like, I don't know, buying a couple things that maybe work for van life. I don't know, researching, talking to people, maybe doing a podcast with Casey because she's living in like Hawaii, which is like an alternate universe basically from the mainland. And I want to take small incremental steps that lead me to making a big decision that is going to be ultimately easier. After all those small choices, it'll be a lot easier for me to just say, oh yeah, let's go. Because right now, if you were like, dude, let's go right now, I'd be like, I want to, but like how? Well, I don't know, like there's too many unknowns and that sucks. I hate that. But I mean, that's kind of the reality of it. And it kind of sucks, but I'm also holding myself not that high in accountability here because it's just like, it doesn't matter, if I'm like 23, like if I go bankrupt, like I'll be fine, I'll figure out a way, I'll sleep on someone's couch, like I'll do whatever. But it's always, you blow it out of your head in proportion. It's always scary in your head. Like I always say, it's always scary in your head. And that's why I'm taking these small subconscious little shifts in perspective, like getting a new gym membership that allows me to be at peace with the gym part, the shower part, the Wi-Fi part. Like, look, I can always have Wi-Fi, shower, and a place to go, Planet Fitness. Good. That gives me some peace of mind. That allows me to make it an easier decision if I'm ever to actually do a van life in the Northwest, which is totally different from my own reality right now. Whew. Wow, I don't even know how we spurn from that quote from Bill Gates, but whatever. Okay, so we're going to move on to the weird random fact of the day. And when I thought of this, because I'd seen it on a video, I thought of my friend Alex, who studies neurology, or I don't know, something about the brain. So I'm going to have her come on at some point in the future to talk about this stuff because I think it's super interesting. But it is that neurology is the brain studying itself. And the brain named itself. The brain does it all, at least to what we think. The brain is in charge of the thinking, of the creative process. I'm like, dude, it's literally the brain is aware of itself. Like sometimes I'll like think as if the brain is like has like eyes and nose and everything. I'm like, the brain is trying to figure out what the fuck is going on inside of it by using its own mechanics that it doesn't understand. And I'm like, and I've read somewhere that like the brain is something that like we barely understand. Like we barely understand it. And I'm like, dude, that is mad weird that we can't figure it out. It's so complex, so many neurons, so many neural pathways going on in different ways. And like, why do drugs affect us in certain ways? And like how, and I just listened to a podcast with Elon Musk where he says like, they're somehow able to create artificial orgasms. I'm like, so they're pinching your like stimulus part of your brain, is it? Or is it touching your genitals? Like, what is it touching? Like, how's that even working? And I just can't believe how much of the brain we don't understand. And the fact that the brain is the one making it all happen. I'm like, oh, it's just like, hurts my brain. I don't know if it hurts your brain. I would love to study the brain. It just looks like a headache. It just looks like a headache. And you know what? She gets a lot of migraines. So, Alex, maybe you should switch jobs. So this is a portion of the podcast that if people were in Clubhouse right now, I would be totally down for them to speak up. Or maybe I would do that like in between my rants. I don't know. I don't know if Clubhouse has a way to like leave text. I think it's all audio. But if you follow me on Instagram, my Instagram is Joyage Podcast Clips, but just type in Joyage Official. And if you have anything you want me to talk about, or if you want to like give me any insight or whatever, just DM me there. You know, I have like 50 followers, so like I will see your message. That'd be dope. You know, I'd love to. I thought about going live on Joyage Official's Instagram, but then Clubhouse came around. And I was like, okay, well, I'd rather do Clubhouse because it's like in right now, and the chance of someone stumbling on my Clubhouse room is a lot higher than my Instagram live. You know, plus I don't have to worry about setting up a camera again, and like I could just set my phone out with Clubhouse. It's all audio, so it's just playing like this. But yeah, if people were popping into Clubhouse, I would totally be down to do collaborations with that. Shit, I guess I'll just talk about some of the stuff that's been happening. So, I pretty much gave the basic rundown, like with Japan happening. I just got back from the snowboarding trip. That was dope. It's so weird that you go and they're my friends from like high school and soccer growing up. So I've known them for a while, and we've been doing this thing for a couple years now where we go to the mountains and hang out. And it's so weird that we like devolve, not the whole time, but like we like sort of devolve back into like our high school self and just like fuck around to the max, you know, just like absolute immature boy stuff. Like just dudes being guys to the max. I'm like, dude, it's so weird that we just like can access that part. Just boom, idiot again. It was weird. And it was funny because they wanted to come on the podcast, like Ish, Irvin, like Samuel wanted to come on the podcast, and I was like, dude, we could not do a podcast. Like, it's a different me when I'm on camera talking about like mindfulness and helping people out of like bad situations mentally. And they were like, no, like we think we could actually offer some insight. And I was just like, really? And a couple of times during that trip, we actually had like some pretty productive conversation of like some dope stuff. And I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe we could do a podcast. That would be cool. And they brought up, they're all Mexican. They're like, yo, we could talk about like minority life and like what that's like. And I was like, wait, yeah, that's a great idea. And something I noticed with David's podcast is that podcast got a lot more, like viewership, especially local. Like a lot of people know David. So I brought like extra fans that never knew me or knew I existed through David. Like they were like, oh wait, that's David. I know that guy. I want to hear what he has to say. And that's on my podcast. So like it brings extra attention to me. And I was like, wait a minute, that's a great idea to collab with people, because now people who know them are going to watch the podcast and maybe they like something I say, or maybe they like the platform that they were on. They just like the podcast or whatever it was. And now I have a new viewer. And so when Casey added me on Clubhouse and was like, yeah, we should collab, I was like, that's a great idea, because you know people in Hawaii that I never could know without your help. And I know people that would never know you without my help. Not as many, because I just started. But the idea of collaborating and reaching new people and kind of like crisscrossing your audiences. For a while, I thought that was bad. I didn't want to do that because, you know, I'd gotten everywhere myself, like doing everything yourself and whatever. But I'm like, dude, collabing with people is like a win-win in every circumstance. Even if you're like a big person and you collaborate with someone smaller, there's probably 10 people who watch that video that now like you. And like, that's cool. And obviously I don't understand what it's like to be a huge person with like a big following or whatever. But in my head, if I had 1 million subscribers and some kid who'd been, busting his ass had like 10K, I'd be like, yeah, sure. Of course we should collab. Like if we have something that we both can take value from and both of our audiences can do something with, then yeah, absolutely we should collaborate. And I don't know, that was just something I was thinking. With David's podcast last week, I wanted to actually, I was supposed to do this in the beginning and I ended up talking about the other thing, but I wanted to kind of sort of recap what happened in that podcast because that was my first ever interview podcast, sort of like with a guest. And the goal was to, talk as if it was normal conversation, but also push the conversation with a certain agenda that I had. I wanted to talk about certain things, get his idea on certain perspectives that we would normally talk about when we're talking about something deep. We've had so many discussions that we should have filmed that would have been insane podcasts, but like it's different when you're trying to do a podcast. I have so much more respect for people like Joe Rogan because he makes it seem effortless. He's just talking. And at this point, like he just is talking. Like he's just so good at it. But I found myself thinking and also trying to listen to him at the same time, which is impossible. It's impossible, and the kid is like a philosopher. So like I was barely keeping up with him, just not thinking at all. And I was trying to come up with like the best next question, the best segue. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And like halfway through, I like just couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I can't think and listen to it at the same time. It's not working. My questions aren't as good as I was hoping they would be because I'm half listening. And I started just listening to what he said. And it was because he said in the middle of the sentence, he's like, yeah, so many people aren't listening. They're hearing you, but they're not listening to you. And when you listen to what people have to say, you learn a lot of stuff. And I was like, you're so right. And I kind of put my phone down because at that point I kind of knew what I wanted to talk about. I had a couple topics I wanted to hit on before we ended the podcast. But I started to just really listen to what he was saying. And questions just naturally started to come up. And a natural flow started to establish itself in the conversation. And the podcast went very well. Even the part that I wasn't happy with, where I was like, I felt like I was in my head a little bit, like thinking what to say, like a little nervous, like I wasn't sure how to do it. And it ended up not being so bad. I ended up liking the podcast. There was a couple of things I wish I could have done differently, but it's a learning curve. The next time I'll do that and I'll be a little more comfortable. And, the more comfortable I am as a podcast host, the more easy and the more, comfortable the guests will be. And just in turn, a better podcast in general. Because in the end, podcast is entertainment. It's just another form of entertainment. And just like a vlog or just like a TV show, the goal is to keep the person there watching your shit or listening to your shit. And for me, I never want to keep you on if I don't think it's something that can benefit you in any way. Like there's no I don't feel like rambling about something if there's no form of value, I don't want to make for me, the vlogs, like vlogging is entertainment in general. So I'm like, look, I'm going to do whatever I want in my vlogs. But if I have a sit down video where I'm talking about something I feel passionate about, everything I'm saying, not every sentence, but most of the stuff I'm saying, like you can take something from that. And there may be someone, you may be listening to this right now and go, dude, there are 3 things I learned in this podcast that I have never heard anyone say before. And for that reason, I'm going to live a different life tomorrow. Like I'm going to think about things in a different way. I'm going to react differently. I'm going to treat someone differently because of something you said. And that to me is dope. And I've had a couple people reach out to me that have said that. They said like, hey, I listened to your podcast the other day and, it taught me this, or I really loved what you said about that. And man, when you have like no audience virtually, that's dope. And so when I have an audience, at some point I will, because I'm going to keep uploading these forever, pretty much. I do not want to get to a point where I'm not reading people's messages and stuff, because I know there are people like that. Obviously, you can't read every message, but I want to make sure I'm being appreciative and grateful for anyone I'm able to, bring on my journey. Because in the same way that I want to help you, like, I want some help. Like, I don't know what my version of that would be. I guess it would just be growth. So it'd be like you subscribing would be like showing me that I'm helping you. And that's how I try and view subscribers. Like if I'm gaining subscribers in my head, I'm like, okay, that means the content I'm putting out is people are fucking with it. And that's great. That's what I want. And if people are growing for my podcast and every time I upload one, I get positive feedback, I'm like, great, this is something that I'm already passionate about. Something that, like, before this podcast started, you may not believe this, but I've done so many in this exact spot with no camera setup. Just like looked at my computer instead and just basically had a conversation myself. Did the exact same podcast basically without the cameras on. So I was doing this stuff before. I would have it like once a week or once every 2 weeks. I would just rant by myself as if I was talking to an audience, just like I am now. And, I was like, why would I not film this? And so when Katrina told me I should, I was like, easy pickings. But anyways, that's really all I have for today. As I always do, as I always want to do at the end of my podcast, if you're still watching, thank you. If you're still listening, thank you. If you're on Clubhouse right now and you want to leave no one's in Clubhouse right now. There's not a single soul, and there hasn't been the entire podcast except for Cameron. So thank you, Cameron. But if you're still watching, listening, thank you so much. That's dope. I love you. If you're struggling with any kind of mental health, self-doubt, you can't get out of bed, you're not alone. And look, this is scripted, but I wrote it. Like, I wrote it so I could say it right. You don't want to do these outros and then have your words all over the place. So we deal with the demons as they come. Some days are great, and some days suck so bad. Like, they suck so bad, you don't even understand how it's possible because yesterday was great. But it happens. It's just life, And if you made it to right now, listening to me ramble and talk about my problems, everything you did got you to today, and you made it. And I'm telling you, you'll make it tomorrow. You have what it takes. Just keep persevering. I know people say it all the time, but it's really true, because when you persevere, you realize that the bad days are necessary, and without the bad days, you can't have the good days. And without the good days, you can't have the bad days. You have to have both, and both teach you stuff. So don't take something bad and turn into a victim. Obviously there are some exceptions, but take what you can from every interaction you have and try and grow from it. If you're here right now listening, I believe in you. You have something. You're alive right now. You got this. You keep pushing. I believe in you. Take that leap of faith. If it's scary, go for it. That's what I'm doing now. I try and practice what I preach as much as I can. You're only guaranteed today, right? You're only guaranteed today. So at the end of the day, do whatever you can to feel satisfied and to feel like you did a thing. Try. And for that literally might be like, I got up and, I don't know, walked around for 5 minutes in my neighborhood. That might be it for you. And that's okay. Like, we're all in different parts of life. We're all in different chapters of the book, Don't judge someone else's chapter 15 if you haven't read all 14 of their chapters. In the same way, don't look at your chapter 1 and assume that they're on the same level as you and doing better than you. They may be at level 25 and put in 24 chapters of work, and you haven't. Maybe that's why they're at where they are. But you're only guaranteed today. So take that step. Take step 1. For me, the Planet Fitness membership. Actively take those baby steps towards your goal. And as I said earlier, have faith. The universe will take care of the rest. Do the steps. Put in the work. Right? It'll take care of itself. It will. Lastly, if my podcast is helping you, subscribe to Join the Voyage and click that like button. It helps me out so much. And also, if you like this video, liking it boosts the algorithm, and the people who need to hear this podcast will have it recommended to them, and maybe we can change their life together. So that's all I have to say. I love you. Peace. We'll see you later.